Karen Osborne is the author of Architects of Memory and Engines of Oblivion from Tor Books. Her short fiction appears in Uncanny, Clock World, Fireside, Escape Pod, Robot Dinosaurs, and Beneath Ceaseless Skies. Take it away, Karen.
All right. Hello, everybody. This is the first chapter of Engines of Oblivion, which is the second and final book in the Memory War duology. The first one is called Architects of Memory, and you can get it wherever books are sold. Caught between heartbeats, a single breath skelterways in her hurling lungs, Natalie Chan wondered if operating the proxy rig herself had been such a good idea. The boneheads in R&D hadn't sent up the people she needed for this mission, real soldiers with real combat experience. Instead, her rig operator was to be chosen from a trio of shivering indentures. Too young and too stupid to have any real combat experience. Lab rats sent to do a soldier's duty. She'd stared at their skinny bodies and sleepless eyes, remembering a time when she was the one stuck in front of a frowning citizen with director's tabs, terrified down to her bones and trying her best not to show it. "You're not in the military branch at all, any of you?" she asked. The tallest one, young, dark-haired, exhausted, blinked. "I'm a janitor," he'd said, stammering it out. "We're all janitors." Another boy lifted his chin. "Are we getting the upgrades finished today?" She took one more look at the exterior cameras. Vancouver was still losing the battle over Bittersweet, and orders were orders. She thought about the 12 yawning minutes it would take to get decent infantry replacements, muttered an epithet against cost-effective savings, then marched to the proxy rig herself. "Strap me in." "That isn't a good idea, sir. It's not like they need to shoot anyone." Apke's head researcher frowned from behind a curtain of fashionably slashed bangs. "That's not the point, Miss Ascanio," Natalie said. "It's just a half-mile walk." The proxy rig looked like something straight out of a holovid. An open black cube hung with spider-like cables, straps, and neural interfaces. Applied Kinetics had been working on the project all year, using the guts of captured and diffused Vi devices to elevate the formerly simple infantry helmet cam into something far more useful. Natalie stepped inside the assemblage, picking her way to the center. The techs hovered around her, making sure the cold, sticky neural patches lay flush against her sweaty temples. They drew the strap supporting Natalie's chest harness tight enough to sting, then tested her balance. Natalie jabbed the button that tightened the thick, shining support cables above, lifting her feet off the floor. She heard the same quiet, uncertain whine she always did, a whine the techs swore they couldn't hear. She hadn't wanted to use the rig in combat before eliminating that annoyance, but it was too late now. Natalie stretched her fingers, kicked her feet, felt the give. She checked her center of gravity, feeling the tug of Vancouver's anti-grav on her feet, making sure the alien slippery cables were gathered far away from where they could catch on her elbows and ankles. The harness dug into her belly. "We really should be doing this in zero gravity," she thought. But while Auroran R&D could stick her consciousness in a puppet drone thousands of kilometers away, artificial gravity was still a ship-level constant. Nearby, the janitors wavered, their eyes wide, their faces more confused than grateful. Natalie sighed. "What were you doing during the Vi War, Mix Ascanio?" "I was completing my robotics degree." "Right. You were basically sitting on Europa Station, eating candy with your thumb up your bum," Natalie said. "Infiltration is a specialist game, and I don't care what the board says. You can't just drop unconditioned indentures down the chute and expect them to do a good job. So I'm the only one here who can." Ascanio bristled. "Miss Chan, if the board finds out." Natalie sighed. She was sick of her head researcher's blatant brown-nosing, but she made a note to deal with it later. "I'm sick of the board getting in my face on this. No other directorate on Vancouver gets this kind of oversight. Just me, just Applied Kinetics. They must have their reasons. And this is mine. People are dying, Ascanio. Drop me." Natalie caught some hesitation in Ascanio's stance. She wondered about it, briefly, because the engineer was always so confident. But before Natalie could ask about it, Ascanio's hands slipped clean and quick into the now familiar motions that activated the proxy rig. After that, it all came very quickly, exactly as Natalie expected. The prick of the needle, the rush of the meds, the ache of being poured into the proxy puppet, pancreas first, followed by the silence of her beating, thrashing heart and the sheer animal panic of death, 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 this is death, until the puppet's HUD matrix smashed straight into her prefrontal cortex, jerking her awake, bringing her boggled senses back online. Sunlight wailed around her as if she were actually on Bittersweet, her feet covered in its thin golden dirt. Natalie struggled to stand and walk, feeling sudden stabbing adrenaline spike behind her sternum. Something's really wrong, her adrenals shouted, and she spent a few precious seconds searching for hostiles before she realized the wrongness was wrapped around her tongue, was the half-sweet filtered air of Vancouver, rather than the tin-strong tang of a tank on her back. A view of the applied kinetics lab, Ascanio, the techs, the lab rats, flashed in front of her eyes for a moment, unstable and withering. Ms. Chan, please check in. Her vision blurred, and she stumbled to a halt. You're messing with my immersion, Mr. Ward, Natalie said, feeling a sudden, saber-sharp headache. Can you use the interface on the other side of the room so I don't hear you twice? She swallowed. Immersion. She needed to stay immersed in this. I'm the one on the ground. I'm on Bittersweet. There's only a half-inch of fabric and plasteel between me and sucking down certain death, she lied to herself. And she marveled at how similar the interaction felt to querying the memory device she was wearing. No, she reminded herself, that her body was wearing back on Vancouver. It was going to be hard enough to keep everything straight as the rig's actual project manager, and the board thought janitors could do it. She rolled her neck and started walking, relishing the strange, shiny weight of the mech paired with a momentary pride. It was hard not to feel a little cocky. After all, it was partly her soldier skin that Aurora wanted for applied kinetics. She was the only one in the company with the required experience mixing a gunner's eye for tactics from the war with an engineer's knowledge of Vi bomb guts from her time as a salvager on 25. Even her half-forgotten pre-corporate life was useful here. Even though she'd left the Verdict Collective years ago, she still knew enough about off-brand biocoders and their work to guide the rig from concept to reality. If her proxy rig worked as advertised, Aurora would be able to deliver Vi weapons to the battlefield without killing the soldiers who brought them. Her tactician's heart imagined drones, tanks, entire cruisers driven from haptic rigs, her body writ large in metal and flame, invincible, her blood safely inside her skin where it belonged. There'd be another promotion, honorifics, maybe an important chair on a starship bridge. Unless, she thought, wait, something's still very wrong.